Good morning. Well, it's great to be a part of this service. So hello everybody, and what a fun treat to get to meet Reverend Bridget in the pre-recorded announcement. So I want to start my little section here. We're going to use a song to lead into a time of meditation, and the song is called "We Go Together." So what I'm saying, what's really coming to me in the song is we go together and that we all fit together as part of one being, but also we're all kind of going together in one direction, moving forward, growing as one. So I hope you'll join me in this and just sing with me on the chorus. We go together as one. So let's close our eyes wherever we are, unless you're driving. Take a deep breath in and kind of settle in for a time of the inner. We go together. We go together. We go together as one. Will you sing that with me? We go together. We go together. We go together as one. In the beginning, there was God, and God is all there. Then we divided up, yet we're still one because, sing with me, we go together, we go together, we go together. We go together as one. As I reach into all being, you are all a part of me. We can't fly without each other. When we get this, we'll be free. We go together. We go together. We go together as one. We go together. We go together. We go together as one. We go together. So if your eyes aren't closed already, I invite you to close your eyes. Let's take a deep breath in together. In. And feel that place in you that reaches out and melts into the being of all the other people in this world. We go together. Sometimes we may feel separate. But deep inside, there's this place where we are all joined. Sometimes we feel that, don't we? There's one body of Christ. There's one Spirit of which we are all a part. There's one creation, and you and I are part of that. We go together as one. We go together. And as we let that truth really soak into our being, it changes how we are with each other. It's harder to have an enemy when you know we go together as one. We call this church Unity for a reason. In the beginning, there was God. And God is all there was. And then we divided up into all these little parts, all these puzzle pieces. But really, we're still part of that same oneness. So we take a deep breath and let this in. Breathe that deeply into you, that reminder that person next to you is part of you. You're part of them. We are all part of the one whole. We go together. And so it is, and so we are. When you sing your song, there's a power in the wind that will sail you home to the peace you know within. When you sing your song, all of nature will join in to bless you in your mission here on earth, to help you in your service here on earth. When you sing your song, you can feel the rising tide, lifting all things up, and there's nowhere left to hide. When you sing your song, you become alive inside, to bless you in your mission here on earth, to help you in your service here on earth. So you ask the rising tide and the power in the wind, and you know that there's no way you could ever fail. And you call upon your heart and God who lives within, and know that there's no way you could ever fail. You know that there's no way you could ever fail. When you sing your song, There's a power in the wind that will sail you home to the peace you know within. When you sing your song, all of nature will join in to bless you in your mission here on earth, to help you in your service here on earth. La da 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 da, la da 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 da. Well, thank you. I'm going to assume you're smiling and feeling the truth in that, and the truth of all we've been sharing this morning. So again, I'm Charley Thweatt, coming to you from Dunedin, Florida, which is in the Clearwater area, and sending you bright sunshine to Albany and wherever you might be sitting. And my talk this morning is called Living in Connection. Are you on God's Wi-Fi? Living in Connection. Are you on God's Wi-Fi? I'm going to look at 3 different areas where we talk about being connected. And then a little bit of fun I'm going to have this morning also is I'm bringing in quotes, little dueling quotes for each of these 3 areas, and one coming in from the Buddha and the other Mark Twain. So we'll see what they have to say about living in connection. Okay, so I want to start with just looking at the first area, which is connection with self, and I'm going to give little subtitles to each of these areas. And so connection with self, I'm calling your inner net, okay? So that's in the Wi-Fi theme. So I-N-N-E-R, your internet. Are you connected on your internet? And I want to reflect on that song I just sang. When you sing your song, there's a power in the wind that will sail you home to the truth you know within. When you sing your song, all of nature will join in. And what I'm looking at here is when we step into truly giving the gifts we were given to give. So singing your song is the metaphor for that. In my case, it happened to be singing songs, but yours might be different. And what I'm noticing is that, when you are on track doing your gift, you feel more in your power, don't you? You feel more in your joy. I have a friend, an author named Alan Cohen, and he and I toured together for 7 years in the late 80s, early 90s. Maybe you've heard of him. Wonderful author. Check out his books, Alan Cohen. One of his book titles really strikes me. Sometimes the titles say everything, don't they? So the title of this book is Joy is My Compass. Joy is my compass. So what I'm hearing here is let joy be your north arrow. If you're following what your heart, what brings your heart joy, maybe you're more on track in giving your gifts and what you're meant to give. So my story, some of you have heard this before, but I loved doing music as a kid, from age 8 on, and started learning all these instruments, loved singing, got to the time of college and decided to get a more practical degree. And I ended up getting a 5-year degree in architecture. It's a professional degree. And I ended up working in a big architectural firm for 3 years, sitting there in my cubicle, feeling like, well, this is very responsible of me, but I'm not really loving this. And it was safe. I had my benefits package, my steady paycheck, my insurance, and all the benefits of a steady job. And yet I felt like I was dying a slow death there in my cubicle. It wasn't really what my heart was calling me to do. And I used to lovingly call that my slow death with benefits, right? So anyway, at one point I saw an opening. Actually, it's through connecting with a Unity church, that this music I'd been writing about my spiritual path, I found an audience who really wanted to hear it. And that kind of got me kicked in a different direction to where I finally felt the momentum, where I left my safe job and took a very unsafe path into my heart's joy. And with every step, somehow the universe showed up and supported me. I was singing my song, I was doing my gift, and the universe came in and kept giving me yeses. It was, just a little bit at a time. It wasn't some big, here it all is. That's how life is, isn't it? Just another step, just to encourage you, keep going. And so that was me stepping into, being connected with my internet, because my inner being was not, its joy wasn't found in being in that cubicle. Now, for many people, that's their perfect place. It wasn't mine. So when I stepped out and did that, it changed everything. I was connecting to my internet, and sometimes, it takes courage to be honest about what's right for you. It takes integrity. Now, as a kid, when I heard the word integrity, it was kind of like mom and dad saying, now remember, be honest and don't steal and all this, tell the truth. But in this case, on a soul level, it's really about telling the truth about who you are and who you came to be. That's a deeper integrity. Can I say that I'm in integrity with my soul's mission? I came to earth to do something. And what is that? And for some of us, we're still finding it. But remember the joy is my compass aspect. Let that be your north arrow. Where are you being pulled if there's still some question in your mind? And again, it takes courage to step out and say, I'm going to leave this safe job and go do music for a living. I remember my aunt came to see me at one of my first concerts, and she had a very conservative feeling about what I was up to, and she said, you have a degree in architecture, and now you're going around the country singing for love offerings? Your grandfather would roll over in his grave. So, it didn't bother me that she said that, because I knew it was true for me. I knew that I was on the right path. So you may have your opinion, and thank you for sharing, okay? So I want to share a quote from Mark Twain at this point. And he said, with courage, you dare to take risks. So there's that courage factor. With courage, you dare to take risks, have the strength to be compassionate, and the wisdom to be humble. Courage is the foundation of integrity. Think about that. We just talked about the courage to be in your integrity. And courage, he says, courage is the foundation of integrity. So sometimes it's about being brave enough to take those leaps, isn't it? Brave enough. So I want to talk more about this inner net, and something that's come back. I come back into my life lately is meditation. I've been deeply in it, and then kind of did it not, and then come back and not. And lately I've been in a meditation mode. And that's another way of how we connect on that inner net, connect to ourselves, who we are. And for some people, it's hard to sit and meditate because your mind goes crazy the whole time. Well, that's kind of part of it, isn't it? A lot of people will say that it's about, by meditating, you find out who you are apart from your thoughts. And I've heard some people say, think of yourself like you're sitting on the edge of a river or a stream. And so that's you, kind of sitting peacefully. And then in the stream, there are all these leaves floating on the surface, these leaves going by. And those are your thoughts. So, but you are not your thoughts. That's just your thoughts going by. You're the one sitting on the river watching them go by. And that's, for me, part of the gift of meditation, to be able to separate who you are from your thoughts, not get caught up in I am my thoughts. You're not. You're that still point on the shore. So use meditation. I love how they call it a practice, because for me, it is a practice. It's practicing how to be in daily life. It's practicing how to be in daily life, to see yourself separate from the chaos going by. And remember who you are as that still point. So that's another great reason to stay in connection with our inner selves, to navigate that chaos. A great quote from A Course in Miracles kind of talks about the same thing. At the end of the introduction, it says, nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. So in that scenario, the real is you sitting on the shore. Who you are as spirit is real and eternal. And these thoughts going by, they're not really real. They're just, chaos, chatter. Those really don't even exist. Beingness exists. Thoughts or chatter going by. And when you are able to distinguish, herein lies the peace of God. Okay, let's see what the Buddha had to say about meditation. So he was asked, what have you gained from meditation? You know what his answer was? Nothing. Isn't that great? What have you gained from meditation? Nothing. Well, that could even be a double meaning there. You know, to gain nothing is maybe a beautiful thing, that nothingness. But he also said, nothing. However, let me tell you what I have lost. Anger, anxiety, depression, insecurity, and fear of old age and death. So he lost those things by just sitting and realizing that those are just leaves passing by. Okay, so that interconnection. So let's move on to the second area, and that's connection with others. And I'm going to call that our intranet, that intra connection we have. So we have the inner net, now the intranet. And I want to reflect back on the song I played just before the meditation. We go together. We go together. And that's really looking at again, how we are fit together as pieces in a puzzle. There was the creation, and in my mind, it's like, there was the oneness, and then the oneness wanted somebody to interact with and to be able to know its own love. And so we divided up into all these different parts, and here we are, seeing God in each other's eyes, seeing that creation in each other. So that's what that song is about. We go together. Now, I want to tell a story about when I was in Kona at a health food store. And I was preface this by saying that one of the deepest things that's happened in my spiritual journey is to sit in silence and look in another person's eyes. And this is not a staring contest, but it's where we both agree, let's just sit in beingness. And I've had amazing openings and deep senses of oneness with people from doing this. So here I am, I'm years later at a health food store in Kona, and I'm walking up to the cash register, and there's kind of this young hippie guy, maybe 24 years old, with a beard and long hair. I see his name is Ben on his name tag. And as I'm approaching the cash register and the checkout area, I see a sign that says wisdom discount for those over 55 years old. I thought, oh, fun, I get a wisdom discount. So I walked up and said, hey, Ben, I'd like to get my wisdom discount on these groceries. He says, well, great. But first, would you share a bit of wisdom? I thought, well, that's sweet. That's different and fun. So I thought, well, I said, well, one of the most profound things I've experienced in my life is that deep connection, just looking another person in the eyes in that place of stillness and connection. And you know what he did? He just paused and looked me in the eyes and we took each other in for 20, 30 seconds. Just a sense of this beingness and connection. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. And I got my wisdom discount. So that was fun too. So really it's about being available for connection. Be available for connection wherever it shows up. I'm reminded of a song I wrote a while back, and some of the lyrics say, take your time when you're being with people. What's another minute to you? We keep finding ourselves in each other. Make this time precious in all that you do. And for me, what those lyrics bring to mind is, imagine you're out running errands. And you have 10 errands you have to get done before noon. And you're on errand number 4, you're at the drugstore picking up something, and you run into someone you haven't seen in a year, and they want to talk. They want to stop and talk and chat, and you're thinking, well, I have 6 more errands. That's what you're thinking. I got to go. I got to get done by noon. No. Stop. Be with this person. Did you come to earth to run errands? When you were up, as a spiritual being before coming into this life, did you say, oh, I can't wait to get to earth and run errands? No, we're here to connect with each other. We're here to grow from connecting with each other. That's why we're here. So take your time when you run into people, when you're being with people. What's another minute to you? Sometimes connection happens just from being willing to listen. One of the best communication tools I've ever learned is not talking and just listening when someone's speaking. Because, first of all, I'm not busy preparing my next clever thing I'm going to say. If I just say, I'm just going to listen. And even if there's a moment of silence, I don't have to fill it in. You don't have to fill it in. Maybe someone's working on something very important, And that silent pause is when the next thing is bubbling up that's going to change their life when they realize that if you're busy interrupting, you're going to stop that flow. I had a workshop I was leading in San Diego a number of years ago, and I set it up where, partner number one, you just speak, the other listens for 3 minutes, and then you switch, and then the other person speaks, then the other just listens. You don't say anything. You can nod or smile. And there was a sharing time at the end of that, and one of the couples had been married 20 plus years. And afterwards, the husband raised his hand. He said, I have a miracle I want to share. For the first time in over 20 years, I got to speak uninterrupted to my wife. Well, it's kind of funny, but it's also, there's a truth in that we need to be heard. And it's okay not to fill in the empty spaces. It's okay to just take in what's being said and listen. It's a beautiful way to have that intranet connection. So Mark Twain had a quote that totally relates to this. Let me find that here. He said, wisdom is the reward you get for a lifetime of listening when you would rather have talked. Wisdom is the reward you get for a lifetime of listening when you would rather have talked. Isn't that beautiful? And the Buddha had something to say also about connection with others. And this is really about friendships and family. He said, a trusted friend is the best relative. A trusted friend is the best relative. And you can just feel that heart-to-heart intranet connection in that quote. Okay, so lastly, I want to go to connection, the third area of connection. So we've done connection with self, the inner net, connection with others, the intranet, and then lastly, connection with God. We're going to call this the internet, starting with the letter E, E-N-T-E-R. We're entering into that connection with God. And a big way we do this is to open to guidance, to step into faith, that faith connection with God. And probably the biggest question we all ask in our kind of dire moments is, God, what would you have me do? There's some situation that's confounding us. God, what am I supposed to do in this situation? And that's when we really do, seek that guidance and need that information. And sometimes you hear an answer, right? Maybe you hear an answer, but then the question is, are you willing to trust what you hear? Or maybe sometimes you feel like you're not getting full bars, like, I'm not hearing anything, or I think I heard, So for me, if I hear an answer, if I ask and I hear an answer, that leap has to be willing to go with the answer I heard. Because if you asked for an answer and you got one, then let's take the step with what we've been given. And you might think, well, but what if I stumble and fall? What if it's the wrong way? Well, you're already stumbling and falling. Wouldn't it be better at least to do it while holding God's hand and reaching out in trust and faith? So, it's really about listening and being willing to hear and answer. I want to tell a story that happened to me a number of years ago, and to me this is one of the most interesting examples I've ever experienced. I was living in Houston with my girlfriend. Her name was Rosie, and we decided we're moving from Houston to San Diego because there were more opportunities to share what we were doing spiritually, the music and workshops. And so we drove out and stayed with some friends we had made in San Diego. We were there for 3 nights. So we arrived, and then the next morning we drove around looking for a place to rent. And we drove and looked, and nothing was flowing, nothing was opening up. Went back, spent the night with the friends, drove out the next day, second day, still nothing. Couldn't find a rental, it wasn't flowing, and came back, and the next day we were meant to drive back to Houston. And that morning, before we were headed back to Texas, in that kind of half awake, half asleep state, I heard a voice as clear as a bell. And it was like 6 in the morning. The voice said, Maureen has a listing for you. And I woke up and went, Rosie, wake up. I just heard a voice. It said, Maureen has a listing for us. And Maureen was a new friend we had made in San Diego, and we knew she was a real estate agent. So we waited until an appropriate hour, called up Maureen, said, Maureen, we heard this voice that you have a listing for us. We've been trying to find a rental. And she says, well, I am a real estate agent, but I don't have rentals. I sell condos to to millionaires and movie stars. So I'm sorry, I have no idea what this is about. And we kind of shook our heads and thought, well, okay. And a few hours later, we get in the car and start heading back to Houston. So we've been there a couple of weeks, and we're still shaking our heads. And finally I said, Rosie, there's got to be something to this. You don't just hear a voice and have it be for nothing. And so I said, we got to call Maureen. So I got Maureen back on the phone. Said, Maureen, we just need to check again because, we heard that voice, and do you have any idea what it might have been about? And she says, you're not going to believe this. It's amazing that you happen to call at exactly this time because I just decided I'm moving out of my rental condo. I haven't even told the landlord yet. It sounds like it's exactly what you need, and I'll connect you guys up with the landlord. I'm sure you'll be able to get it. And we did. And guess what? Maureen did have a listing for us. It just took a little patience and a little time. You don't always know at the first moment. Sometimes it's just that waiting. And maybe it's the courage to wait and let things develop. So that was an amazing experience of hearing a voice and having it play out and listening for that guidance. And just knowing there's something there. That is being on God's Wi-Fi. But it's always a dance. It's not, nothing falls into place perfectly right away. Well, maybe it does, but it's really about patience and just that openness, being willing to be open to enter into that connection with God, that internet. So let's see what the Buddha has to say about this. He said, in the end, only three things matter. How much you loved, how gently you lived, and how gracefully you let go of things not meant for you. And we had to be graceful for a couple of weeks and just say, well, okay. But also to stay with it, to be open to, see, my intuition said call her. My guidance said call her 2 weeks later. So that played out. I'll say that one again. In the end, there are only three things that matter. How much you loved, how gently you lived, and how gracefully you let go of things not meant for you. And then finally, Mark Twain, he had to say this about in the end, and which in this case, at the end of his life. And he said, I do not fear death. I had been dead for billions and billions of years before I was born, and I had not suffered the slightest inconvenience from it. Isn't that funny? Again, I do not fear death. I had been dead for billions and billions of years before I was born, and I had not suffered the slightest inconvenience from it. So I'll just wrap this up. So we did the internet, that connection with self by staying in integrity with your soul's joy, that north arrow of what, joy is my compass, and through knowing your center with meditation. The intranet, being connected with others through the eyes and the power of just listening, really receiving what another person is saying. And then the internet, entering in with God, being available for guidance and for hearing that inner voice. And meanwhile, we dance lightly with life's challenges, remembering we are always connected to God. We are always on God's Wi-Fi. So I'm going to close with a song, and to me, when we step into that internet, that connection with self, that integrity, that following that north arrow, following our joy, that's when we truly are in our power. That's when we feel the strength of who we are and like we're really on the right track. So I want to close this little section with one of my favorite songs. This is called Take Your Power Back. I know you remember there are times in your life when you've walked in a gentle state of grace, and all your problems and all your beliefs were erased by a sweet smile on your face. Take your power back that you've been given, get it back like you had it before. Take your power back that you've been given, get it back, and you'll have even more. You can't keep giving your own power away to anybody. or thing that comes along. It's up to you now to do or say what it takes to keep your center strong. Sing with me if you like. Take your power back that you've been given, get it back like you had it before. Take your power back that you've been given, get it back, and you'll have even more. There's no use trying to get by it. You can't bypass this place in the road. Your mind will tell you you can live like this, but your heart can't, and it's about to explode. Take your power back that you've been given, get it back like you had it before. Take your power back that you've been given, get it back, and you'll have even more. Take your power back that you've been given, get it back like you had it before. Take your power back that you've been given, get it back, and you'll have even more, have even more, have even more. Thank you so much. It's great being here with you, and I'll come back at the end with one more song. So it's